And then the third phase of my life is now, which I have the renewed energy and excitement and drive. And I'm so much more balanced. And when I got to that place, I realized that I could help other physician moms get to where I am now, because everyone's living through their own turmoil right now. And not to say my story is the same as theirs. The skills that I learned from what I went through apply to, I think, everybody. And so now I want to take those skills and give them back.
So welcome back to the Med Story podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Cindy Van Praag. She's a physician, entrepreneur, and the founder of Inspired Moms MD. She's a podcaster, entrepreneur, and a proud mom of 2 teens, and has over 20 years of experience in medicine and really a bold vision for change. She's built a thriving online business that's helping physician moms reclaim their autonomy without the guilt. So if you're a physician building your brand and your business, make sure to hit subscribe and let's get into it. Welcome, Dr. Van Praag.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. And, I don't even want to waste any time. I want to dive right into it. Okay. So you are the founder and CEO of Inspired Moms MD. Now, what I'm really interested in is what's the story that actually inspired you to want to start this business?
Oh, yeah, the story. So this business is at the tail end of a long story, which is my life. And if I had to break down my life into 3 categories, I would start out like any other physician, just bright-eyed, driven, excited, full of energy. And that's what launched me into medical school. And I loved it. Loved it. Loved med school, loved the patients, I chose anesthesia because I could be hands-on on my feet. Then along the way, you get into the second phase of my life, which is a period of kind of disillusionment, and where I started losing my energy. I started losing the drive. I'm losing the excitement. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was the burnout phase of my life. And I can dive into that a little bit later if you wish. And then the third phase of my life is now, which I have the renewed energy and excitement and drive. And I'm so much more balanced. And when I got to that place, I realized that I could help other physician moms get to where I am now, because everyone's living through their own turmoil right now. And not to say my story is the same as theirs, but the skills that I learned from what I went through apply to, I think, everybody. And so now I want to take those skills and give them back and help kind of turn around to the women who are, 5-10 years behind me, and like lend them a hand. Like, here guys, like, this is what helped me, and I can help you through this. I can be your guide. And so Inspired Mom MD is really to inspire those women to grab my hand and to kind of pull themselves out of it, maybe sooner than I did.
It's an incredible mission. I want to zoom into this between these 3 phases, and I really want to zoom into the burnout portion of it. Tell me that moment, like what was happening in your life when you started to realize that something was wrong and that change needed to happen?
So, oh gosh, burnout's a big topic. And I did not realize it was happening until it started hurting me physically and mentally. It creeps up on you. It's insidious. You don't realize that change needs to happen until you've already accumulated a lot of the fallout from burnout. There was one moment in time that I realized I can't go on. And having said that, there are multiple times where you kind of go through phases. So you're doing great, and then burnout kind of creeps in, even though you don't know what it is yet. And then you feel better and you're okay, I got this. So I made a change. I cut back my hours 20%. And then you slip down into that burnout trough again. But that one moment was when I was driving to work, and I just had this feeling in the pit of my stomach, and just dreaded, from the moment that morning, I just didn't want to go there. I just dreaded going to work. That was the moment where I realized something's got to change. People have been telling me, my husband had been telling me, you have to do this. And my independent self would say, no one can tell me what to do. I am in charge of my life. And I didn't listen to him. I'm not angry at him for saying that. He said it out of love, and he saw it before I did. And so it was in that moment driving to work that I'm like, I got it. Other people have been seeing this in me all along. And it took me to be physically wrecked to realize that something's got to change.
Yeah. It's interesting as I hear you say that story, because I was thinking about, my experience in healthcare. I'm a physical therapist by trade. And for transitioning out of clinical care, I actually was starting to experience something similar to that. And I don't even think I realized until right now that maybe I was burning out as well. I always loved my job. I loved the patient care. I love to help get people moving again. But I just felt that part of me wasn't fully there like it used to be, and I couldn't give all that I was giving to my patients that I had done in the past. And I don't know, maybe that was a sign that I was starting to burn out, and I found my attention and my inspiration wanting to serve in a different way. That's why I'm here. So that's actually really helpful for you to share that with me. So I appreciate that. Your husband tells you that you seem like you need a change. You're finally agreeing on it. Okay. What was the next step that you took?
The next step was at that point in my life, I was doing part-time anesthesia work, which I'd still do part-time anesthesia. And I was also running my first real business that I co-founded, which was our ketamine infusion center. And the combination of those two things meant working, well, most of the time, 6 days a week. And that was part of what led to the burnout. So what had to change was I had to give up something. And it was the ketamine infusion business at that time. It was pulling back, and we were at a phase where, it was either if we wanted to grow, it was going to mean more time invested on my part. And I just couldn't do it. I mean, I physically could do it, but I couldn't. And so that was the moment. It's like, okay, I need to pull back from this. That was about the time that I was learning integrative medicine and integrative health and wellness coaching. So I was at the same time, believe it or not, learning how to mitigate stress and meditate. And if you can believe it, I was learning all these skills, but I didn't recognize I was burned out at the time, which is just crazy. That's just how it blinds you. I was learning the tools and I didn't recognize that I was burned out. So that was the moment when I'm like, okay, I need to pull back from this. I'm going to keep my anesthesia job because that's my stable kind of bread and butter. And I'm going to shift. I focused on myself for a little while and I recovered and I'd used those skills that I was learning. And then that's when I realized, oh, hey, I need to start delivering this to other people. And that's when Inspired Mom MDs was
Wow.
created. It was
Mm,
after that point of pulling back.
that's amazing. And I think that this is really powerful for people to realize that in life and in entrepreneurism is that oftentimes we're going to have chapters and we're going to have to pivot. And the ability to pivot is one of the biggest and strongest skill sets that you can acquire in your life because things are going to be thrown at you that you're not expecting. And you need to say, okay, what comes at me? Okay, I'm going to go next. Now, I will say doctors tend to be really good at this because they're used to having unexpected things come at them. But I find that sometimes when it gets personal and an emotional level, sometimes they're really good at doing it for other people, but not themselves. Have you experienced something similar to that?
Right. So, yeah, I think a lot of physicians go into medicine because they want to be in a helping profession. We take the Hippocratic Oath with our little white coat and we are still bright eyed, pledge that patients will be first. And that bleeds over into the rest of our lives. It's not just in medicine, but it's part of who we are as physicians. It's also kind of entrained in us to continuously help others before ourselves. And that's how we get behind when we don't help first. It's the whole analogy, put your oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your seatmate when you're on the airplane. And doctors aren't great at that.
And I'm sure that's where your coaching and your programs can become so valuable for them. So you made that shift. You started this business, Inspired Moms MD, and it's brand new. And so how did you find your first client?
The training was actually quite long. It was a year in total. And so my first client was actually kind of a branch from my training. So training involves, the course and the curriculum and going through a bunch of practice clients. And then you get volunteers. And then it was kind of word of mouth from the volunteers that got me my first client. So I'm still growing and I'm still building. And yeah, I think word of mouth is stronger than putting out like Facebook ads and things like that, which I have not done any paid ads yet. I don't think there's a great return at my stage of the game.
I hear you. That's like you got to start lean and just continue to figure out what that messaging is to get in front of the right people. So that's
Mhm.
really important. And so you're doing the coaching, but you also started the podcast, your Inspired Moms MD podcast. And so why did you decide to start that? And how does that actually fit into your business strategy?
Yeah, that started at the very beginning of my business strategy. And the idea was that I could get my voice out and people could listen to me week after week, get to know my personality, my voice, who I am, what I think. And it's almost like they get to know me before having to commit to a phone call. And, when you have like a cold phone calls are uncomfortable. I don't want people to meet me for the first time over a Zoom call and then say, "Hey, do you want to work with me?" That's just kind of awkward. So I'd rather people come to me if they feel like there's something there, there's a connection, and they kind of already know my way of thinking. So the podcast is a great medium for getting my voice out there. And that's why I started it from the beginning. It also helps you build credibility too, right? And it's also so much fun because I'm starting to interview more people, like you interview people. It is so fun learning about other people's stuff. Because your title med story is just spot on. Yeah.
Oh, I agree 100%. I didn't anticipate it being as fun as it is. And it's interesting. Later today, I'm giving a presentation to the So Many Docs community about podcasting. And honestly, it's really changed my life because I'm someone that enjoys connecting with someone intentionally on a deeper level and having a deeper conversation rather than keeping it superficial. And there's so many additional benefits of how you can link it to your business and then put it into the strategy for growth. When you're building out this content machine, if someone's listening to this and they're not familiar with saying, okay, I'm starting a business, but I went to medical school. I have no idea how to market or to do sales or anything like that. You need to think about what is going to be your client's journey from the point to where they gain awareness of who the heck you even are. Now, just because they know who you are and you're a doctor doesn't mean they're going to buy from you, right? Then you need to start putting out information that gets them to know you at a deeper level. And that's where I imagine that your Inspired Mom MD is so valuable. Because if they sit down and listen to you for 15 to 30 minutes, they're going to say, okay, this woman knows what she's talking about and she can provide me with the resources that I need to get to where I want to be. So I think that's so important. So as you're building this out, have you decided, are you doing a one-on-one coaching model, group coaching, or kind of playing with both at this point?
At this point, it's a one-on-one coaching model. And my future goal is to have group coaching. Realistically, from a business standpoint, it's easier to start with the one-on-one coaching model because you have to cast a wider net to get groups of people in. And the group coaching is just, that is so much fun too, because the people in the group learn from each other
Hmm.
and spark new ideas. And it's so valuable and it creates the community. So that is a dream of mine to build a business enough to have group coaching and gosh, maybe a few years down the road, just have events, just have get togethers and just build community. But I'm starting with the one-on-one coaching, which is deeply rewarding for me personally too. Yeah, I think it's going to grow from there. I really like what you said about how, as from the business standpoint, getting yourself out there and you're kind of talking about a client funnel is I think what you're kind of describing and getting the word out there and building your credibility and trust. And then people move to, the different part of your funnel before they commit to you. And podcasting is great because for any of the entrepreneurial minds out there, you can repurpose that information in so many different ways. So you can, you have your podcast can be a transcript, which goes on your website, which becomes a blog, and you make that, you get the best SEO keywords in there, and then you post it across whatever platform is your favorite, and then you can turn it into video. And I think that was the best decision ever was to start a podcast because it's not just the audio, it's everything. You could repurpose it for all the platforms, but that was just my tip.
That's an amazing tip. And I agree. It's you're getting this long piece of information where we're having really valuable conversation and it can be spread across it. And so I think what people need to understand is if you're podcasting, your goal should not be to go viral. That should never be your goal, right? But if you start repurposing it, the goal is to just get your message as far and wide as you can across multiple platforms. And you don't want to go viral and get in front of people who you don't actually want to serve. That's not going to be beneficial to you. You're better off actually starting small, getting in front of those people, whoever your ideal client is, whether if it's other physicians or maybe it's patient facing, but choose one of the two and then stick to it. And then getting that message out there can be so powerful. How have you found that once you get someone on a call, how has it been challenging for you to do the sales aspect of it?
Yes, and I think that's because of my personality. I do not like sales. I am one of those empathic, introverted people that doesn't want to be too pushy. And, if people have a good reason, like, oh, yeah, that's a good reason. Okay. I don't act like that. But inside, I'm thinking, well, I don't want to push you. I hate being pushed. I don't want to be like a car salesman. No offense to them, but do not like sales. And so that's why it's so important that when you get to the point that you're on a call, the people you're talking to already know you. And it's just so much more comfortable that way. And you're not selling them, you're just talking realistically. Are we a good match? Does what I'm saying resonate? Or the problems that you have, is that something that I can really help you with? And maybe you need a different type of coach. I will absolutely suggest that. If it's something way off in left field that I'm just not good at, I'll say that. So it's really just a meeting to get to know each other, see if we're a good fit, and just see if I can help them. And also during that call, it's getting them to realize the possibility. It's opening their eyes to what they are capable of with their own ingenuity, and it just takes a guide to bring that out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very natural as a healthcare provider to say you hate sales, right? And what I encourage all the physicians that I've worked with and people on this podcast is to try to reframe that, because you should hate sales if you don't believe in what you're selling. So if you feel like you're selling something that doesn't actually offer value, then you better hate sales, because you're not selling something that's actually of value. Now, this program, Inspired Moms MD, has a tremendous potential to make a huge impact on so many women's lives, right? And so the better that you get and the more optimistic you get with these conversations, the more and bigger impact you can make. And so that sales is really just an opportunity to say, I'm actually helping someone and helping them realize that this is going to be something that's going to help them overcome burnout and get to where they want to be, but so much faster. And hopefully not have to go through all the things that you had to go through.
Right. And it has a trickle down effect. So if that woman either prevents burnout or helps pull herself out of burnout, that affects all the people around her. That affects her job. What if she decides not to leave medicine because she actually likes her job? Wow, what an impact on the whole medical community that they saved a doctor from leaving the practice. Or maybe she decided to leave the practice and opened, oh gosh, who knows what, some side gig. It's a woman who opened up a practice selling flowers. She grows her own flowers, sells them, and is making a killing at it, and is the happiest person ever. And so now she's making that part of the world happy. So by lifting women up, you're helping that woman, but you're helping everyone in their bubble, everyone around them. Yeah.
That is a great point. You're right. It has a magnifying effect where it's going to help
Mhm.
people beyond that. So now at this point, this is your second business, right? And is there anything at this point in your career that you know now that you wish you would have known 5 to 10 years ago?
5 to 10 years ago. Okay, so that would put me at the start of the first business. Now I know that it's worth it to pay somebody to do the things that you're not maybe not skilled at, or you don't have the time for, or you just don't have the patience for. Outsource it. And that's if you can afford it. So for me, that meant hiring a coach, a business coach, when I started Inspired Mom MDs. 5, 10 years ago, when we started the other business, that wasn't even on the table to spend money to hire someone who knew how to do everything, who could accelerate the process. No, we're just gonna figure it out on our own, and it takes so much longer. So, yeah, I would have hired people sooner in my life that are skilled in those areas that I'm not skilled in to just help me fast track, help me launch me there. I'm not a marketing person, so why don't I get someone to help me do that? Or you name it. Yeah, outsource.
That is incredible feedback. And I know that for myself, every time that I've hired a coach, which I've hired many at this point, I wish
Mm.
I would have done it a long time earlier. And because once you get into it and you get into the coaching, you're like, oh my gosh, this is this is what I needed. This is the feedback. And it's almost like a form of therapy as well. You're just talking through the challenges that you have. But then I like how you touched on from an operational standpoint as well, as you find those things that you're either not good at, you don't have the time for, or frankly, you don't enjoy. And if you don't enjoy those things, then it's a good idea to get an assistant to help you out with those things. And when it comes down to affording, I mean, did you have to change your mindset on that? Because realistically, you're not going to say, I'm going to get this and it's going to be an immediate ROI. But what it is going to do is give me the skill set or free up the time to get to where I actually need to be.
Exactly. Right. There is always an upfront cost. And everyone is going to be different on that point. How much money do you have to invest? What do you predict your ROI is going to be? What's your business model? Yeah, for me, it comes down to time. And I think it's because I'm over 50 now. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't have a year to figure something out. So for me, the value on my time, my hour, my day is going up as I get older. And I am more willing to spend money to save time. 10 years ago, yeah, that value was a little bit lower because I had more time. So, oh gosh, it's such an individual decision. So even though going back 10 years ago, if I knew what I knew now, maybe the value of hiring someone wouldn't have played out, because I had more time to figure it out and now I don't. So yeah, that's a tough one. It comes down to the person, what you're willing to invest, the likelihood that you're going to get a return on your investment, and just how stable you feel in, your finances and where you are in life.
For sure. For sure. I mean, I think absolutely you should run a financial analysis and saying, what do you feel comfortable spending? But it does take a mindset shift. It does take you to say, I have to go into this with a growth mindset, saying that this is an investment in myself, just like med school was a massive investment and probably scary at the start,
Right.
And so if a physician wants to maybe do what you're doing and say, you know what, I'm still working in the hospital or the clinic, but I want to start building my brand or my business on the side and continue to build it up. Is there any places that you recommend that they should start?
Oh, well, first up, I highly encourage them to not put that on a shelf. If that person's like, oh, I really want to do this, just start looking into it. So where do they go first? Well, the easiest and the free thing to do is to start joining Facebook groups, start joining entrepreneur groups, there's an entrepreneur magazine, which I love. Just start reaching out to those groups of people and reading things on the area of interest that you have and just getting in that mindset. And that's going to give you ideas on what your first step might be. And oh man, I just highly encourage anyone to follow their dreams if it's a side gig. And if it doesn't work out, then you pivot, like you're saying. That's fine, but at least you learn and at least you don't regret not trying.
I love that's great advice. Start building your network now. And an important thing is you don't have to know exactly what your business is. You may have an idea of a vision of what it might look like, but start with the founding blocks, which are like you're saying is networking, get into those groups, but then also start creating. Like we're so easy for us to consume all this content or this information and saying, I need to know everything before I get started. But instead, maybe you should kind of figure out what do I do? What's the path of least resistance to at least start creating some ideas and getting some feedback and starting that iterative process. Yeah.
Exactly. Just start, just do it. And don't think too much, just do it. So that I applied that to starting with more video, in this business. I thought about it and I said, you know what? I think everything's moving towards video. Just going to do it without overthinking it, without investing too much time researching it, just do it. If you want to be a speaker and your dream is to be on a stage and spread your word, well, maybe just find out where your local chapter. I just read a book on Moth. The Moth is really, if you have listened to the Moth before, they're experts at storytelling. So find a way that you can join a group and tell your story and get up in front of people and just take one little step to get towards where you want to go. Doors will open. You will meet people, you network. You will find ways to get there that you didn't even know.
I love that you just mentioned the Moth. I actually just recently got into that community. I read the book. And if you're someone who's not familiar, it's a really interesting concept. It started, I believe, in New York City as a slam poetry thing. And what they realized is that people would get up on stage, they would be telling their poetry. And then in between the acts, people would come up and just tell a story. And they would say what's going on. And what they realized is that the audience was much more engaged when they were actually telling the stories of what was going on in their life. And so they've developed this platform, which is so cool, where pretty much it's all about storytelling. It's got to be about yourself and it's got to be true. And there's events all around the world for Moth. And so I don't know about you, but I've actually added it on my bucket list that I want to continue to build up the courage to get out there and tell a story on one of those stages as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's or even just the TED Talks. People do those. I mean, it's just yeah, there are many platforms you can get on and tell your story.
For sure. Awesome, Cindy. Well, if a physician, you said you help female physicians, say if they're like feeling, you know what, maybe I am starting to feel some burnout and I want to at least explore maybe what you offer, what's the best way to find you?
I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So LinkedIn would be just my name, Cindy Van Praag, which is V as in Victor, ANPRAAG. My business is Inspired Mom MDs, which is the name of my website. So that's a great way to just pop on the website. It has all the podcasts there, but also a contact me page. So they can find other ways to contact me. But yeah, LinkedIn or my website, Inspired Mom MDs, are the best way to get in touch with me.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation.
Of course. And so if you're someone that's listening to this podcast, if you're a physician that has a story or building a side gig or getting out there, feel free to let us know because we're trying to bring on awesome people like Dr. Van Praag, who's doing it. She's actually taking action on it. And we believe that sharing that story is so powerful. So thanks so much for listening and we'll see you in the next one.